Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo!
Hello, and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. Today's episode is all about salt. Are you consuming too much of it? If you have high blood pressure, then you know you already are consuming too much salt. But for those of you who are trying to prevent getting high blood pressure, then you also want to listen to this. High blood pressure is unfortunate because it can lead to a heart attack or stroke. It's imperative that we get our blood pressure at a controlled amount and at a controlled level so that you don't have to worry about the potential health complications that come from it. Too much salt also retains water. If you're trying to lose weight and you're having a lot of water retention, it might be a little bit discouraging. Yes, it's water weight, but it's also another way to kind of track your progress and make sure that you're on track. If you are maintaining a healthy weight, you're not retaining water, it might motivate you to keep going. We're going to get into it. I'm going to give you 5 things on how you can lower your blood pressure. I do want to start just by saying that the total recommendation of sodium per day is 2,300 milligrams of salt per day if you are a healthy individual. And if you've been diagnosed with high blood pressure, or you might think that you have high blood pressure, or people in your family have a history of high blood pressure, then your total maximum amount of salt you want per day is 1,500 milligrams. Counting and tracking your salt is a little bit challenging, and I don't feel that you really have to track it like you might track your calories and your carbs and your protein and your fat, but it is important to be aware of what has salt and what you can do to decrease your salt intake. One thing I think it's obvious for everyone is if you're using a salt shaker and you use salt after you cook or while you're cooking, using salt obviously will increase the amount of salt that is in a food product or in a meal. Rather than using salt, you could cook with spices, herbs, and you probably have heard that if you use kosher salt or sea salt, then that's a better alternative. What I'll say about that is kosher salt and sea salt, because they're very, very salt to taste, you might not need as much of it to enhance the flavor of your food, but it is still salt. So you still want to be cautious and mindful of how much of that you're actually using. And believe it or not, the salt that we use for cooking and flavoring our food, it only attributes to about 5% of the salt that most people are eating on a regular basis. Our foods naturally have salt in it, so we don't necessarily need to add salt to our foods, but the processed foods are the things that are really, really adding to our salt intake. Processed foods are high in salt mostly because the salt helps with the shelf stability and it keeps the product fresh. You want to make sure that if you're doing things like canned foods like canned vegetables, or frozen foods like frozen vegetables or frozen dinners, that you're really looking at the label. And one really easy way to tell if the food that you have is too high in salt is when you look on the back of the nutrition facts label, if the milligrams or less when you go to the right of 140 milligrams, there's going to be a percentage. If the number is 5% or less, when the percentage is around 20% per serving, high food, either we will use our portion of it or pick something completely no sodium, the low-sodium bacon. Low-sodium bacon, although it has less salt than the original, it's still not a low-sodium food option. It's important to read the facts label, and I'm definitely going to do another Tips with Tony podcast episode. So we'll go into this in a little bit more detail in another episode. But for now, salt, you want to look for foods that have 140 milligrams of sodium or less per serving, or serving. Decrease your blood pressure or risk of developing pressure exercising. The more you get, the more you can lose salt or sweat. And just general healthy exercise help lower our blood pressure. So you don't necessarily have to sweat, but if you sweat, it's added bonus. And stress, also exercising helps you to stress less. And more stress tends to eat food process. And I say about this, it's not just candy, and it's not just food. A lot of our pastries, cookies and cakes and bread, you have to check the salt for. Make sure that you're and read the label of those foods. It just means that you might want to alternative or monitor your portions. You should be overdoing regardless. Another really helpful way to lower blood pressure and decrease the salt and potassium. High potassium foods are balanced with the salt that we eat, and the more potassium we need to help lower that blood pressure. Foods that are rich in potassium, I know you probably think banana. Yes, a banana does have potassium, like tomatoes, avocado, certain fishes, beans. When you incorporate these foods, and also if you just incorporate fruits and vegetables, you're going to have loads of potassium. The ones that I mentioned have more potassium, but if you incorporate those foods, then chances are your blood pressure will increase. Lastly, if you are a smoker or you moderately using alcohol and using cigarettes, these are definitely two habits that you need to quit. Please need help or guidance and are interested in learning how to quit smoking or stop drinking heavily. I hope this was helpful, and if you have other topics or suggestions for future episodes, send me an email to tipswithtony@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. You're listening to the Tips with Tony podcast, and I'm helping you get healthy one